Hi, we'd like to welcome you to another in a series of webinars designed for public transit agencies. I'm Terry Bills, the Transportation Industry Manager here at Esri, and today I'm joined by Justin Kreisinga, who's our Transit Account Executive, and Jason Hagen, a Transit Solution Engineer. So today we want to show you how ArcGIS can help support your community engagement efforts. Before we begin, I'd like to point out that we are recording this webinar, and while everyone will be on mute, there will be time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. You can type your questions into the question box and we'll answer as many as time allows. As well as the slides from today's webinar will be available to you on GeoNet, as well as the webinar itself will be posted on the website in roughly around 3 to 4 days. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. So obviously this has been a really very, very difficult year for public transit agencies with the pandemic, and obviously most of you have experienced a fairly significant changes in your routes and your frequency, and obviously all of that, those changes need to be effectively communicated, and it does sort of bring to bear Title VI requirements. Certainly my experience is that most public transit agencies recognize that they probably can do better and need to do a better job in terms of communicating and engaging with the public. That the public engagement efforts have not always hit the targets that they wanted or been nearly as effective. And in this year, which is really going to be a rebuilding year, what we'd like to suggest is that really finding effective ways to do community engagement, public participation could actually be one avenue to really help building back as we emerge out of the pandemic. And certainly technology is not the only thing. I mean, it really requires a very strong commitment, but technology and what we are going to show you today can help you organize, really can help you make your engagement efforts more effective. So rather than, I'm going to turn it over to Justin, and Justin is going to give a little bit more background, and then we'll actually dive into the demo. So Justin, take it away.
All right, thanks, Terry, and thank you everyone for joining today. Jay and I are excited about this. We have been working with transit agencies across the country really over the last year, and a big focus for many agencies has been on community engagement. So I think COVID has helped to accelerate some of that, because a lot of agencies, I should say all agencies, for at least a period of time, were not able to meet with their community members or residents or citizens or any stakeholders for that matter in person. And so a lot of those public forums had to be moved to some type of format. And the community engagement solution is really a way to do some of that. So happy to be with you here today. Again, we've worked with a lot of transit agencies over the last year, and we've come across a lot of challenges that they've communicated to us. This is by no means an exhaustive list of the things that we've heard, but it's a good representation of that. So for many agencies, likely like those here on the phone or on the webinar today, you're trying to make sure that you're communicating your key initiatives and your changes to your riders for the most part, right? What are the things going on within public transit, within your agency, that you're wanting to push out to your riders? So it's moving from really a one-way communication, maybe just a stagnant one-way website, to a two-way communication, which really involves your riders and your constituents. So you want to get that feedback from the public. Hey, we're making some major service changes, or we're creating a new light rail extension, or we're creating some new bus routes. We want your feedback on that. It's going to impact you in some way. And that way you're ideally getting more folks involved in the conversation, right? You're making sure that everyone is represented, and those folks that are being impacted. And then hopefully through that, you're going to improve the public's perception of your agency, your transit overall, and they'll want to ride, right? That you need to get folks on the bus or on the train or in some way taking advantage of the transit that you have available. So you want to make sure those projects are continuing to keep moving. So some of the ways that the community engagement solution that Esri's put together will do some of that, right? So you have likely encountered that the trend that's happening and will continue to happen is people use their devices for almost everything, whether that be a mobile phone or a tablet. That will continue to drive how people communicate. So you want to be at home or you want to be at work and you want to give feedback on, you know, what you think about public transit. So you want to be able to do that from a survey or something like that. And again, keep those critical projects moving. So that's really a way to adapt to those changing communication trends as an agency. And you want to increase the public's participation in that process, right? You want to understand what your riders want, what they need, get that feedback from them. So whatever changes you're making, they're not going to make any sense if they're not relevant to those riders. So you want to make those changes based on who will be impacted and how they're being impacted. And again, that's going to result in everyone having a voice of at least to some degree. So what we're going to show you today is really focused around a product called ArcGIS Hub. And we use that as kind of a central location to collaborate around some of these initiatives. It's going to help you as an agency really focus on what matters most and what means the most to them. And that gives people a sense of ownership in some way, or that they're part of something, and really that they can communicate around some of these shared priorities. So really, if we were to have you come away with some key points or some things that are going to stick in your mind, one being this will help you to adapt to changing communication trends, increase the public's participation in the planning process, which is of utmost importance to you as an agency, and then build really some community consensus around those things that matter. So I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to turn it over to Jay. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Terry and Justin. So kind of what we were talking about here today is, we have this transit community engagement solution, and really this is a comprehensive solution that's going to give you a suite of applications for doing analysis, for doing communication, and soliciting feedback from the public for things like route changes, system redesigns, line extensions, capital projects, fare changes, and really any kind of outreach needs you might have. So some of the points we want to drive home through the demo is that, we're going to be able to help you adapt to changing communication trends. And really what we're talking about there is, there's just this expectation that you should be able to engage with your service providers really through a number of methods, but essentially through your phone, through applications. It's just an expectation now that we can, get on a mobile device, navigate to an app or a website and be able to engage with the service provider. We also want to help you increase public participation in the planning process. So really, I think two ways that we can help with that. One is by helping you do targeted and focused outreach to particular groups as far as kind of getting the right folks in the room or engaged. And then also just providing a number of avenues for providing that feedback, whether that's through surveys or other types of mapping applications. And of course, all of that goes into building community consensus, and that's what planning is all about, right? So with that, we're going to jump into some demonstrations. I'm going to kind of take on a number of different roles throughout this process. But right now, we're going to kind of start off here with the end result. So as a transit planner, we're going to go through this scenario here where our transit agency just completed a bus system redesign. And as part of that planning phase, we wanted to do a better job of engaging the community and building that consensus around our plan. And we know from past planning efforts, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience, I used to work in a planning department at a transit agency, that sometimes it's difficult to really get that broad cross-section of the the community involved. So we know we didn't have great success in communicating our proposed changes and also soliciting the feedback from the community. So here we're looking at a dashboard, and excuse me, this is really the results of our survey here. We can see that we had over 4,100 total responses. So we're really close to that goal there. We're really engaging more people than we ever have before. We're also engaging a really good cross-section of the community. So here on the map, we have this coded by zip code, but we can see we're doing a pretty good job of engaging folks throughout the county here. Maybe we could do a little bit better job on some of the outskirts here, but we'll look at ways we can kind of target those communities that we're missing out on. So thinking about how we got here, we implemented a comprehensive community engagement platform. So let's take a look at that. And I think one of the first challenges that we usually encounter is just communicating service changes to the public. So to see how we could tackle that problem, we're going to change hats here. We're going to take on the role of a member in the community that found our community engagement page. Okay, so this is our ArcGIS Hub, and this can be configured to provide feedback to the community. And kind of think of this as your central point of communication. From here we're able to link out to a number of different surveys and applications and provide a really interactive forum for feedback here. So as a resident of the community, I'm able to use this site to find out about proposed changes, stay up to date on changes, provide feedback, and learn about events. So one thing I want to point out here first is that I'm actually following this initiative right now. So as a member of the community, I can get a named user and be able to stay in the loop. You can push feedback back to me here. Let's kind of take a look here. So here we can see some information about kind of the timeline, what are the major milestones, some goals. Here we have a map embedded. A second to load. So here's our existing system. Of course, this is just hypothetical. Here's a proposed system, and we can see some new high capacity corridors. This map is interactive, so I can click on this and I can get some specific information about this particular route. So this is another hub page that we've configured. That's one of the powerful things about Hub is you're able to create a number of different pages to engage the community. Of course, here we have a link for a survey, which is we want to provide multiple avenues for providing that feedback. Okay, continuing on here as we scroll down, we can provide links and information about the types of service we're providing. So, explaining what high frequency service means or what, our neighborhood service looks like, things like that. Again, another link to a survey. So we want to provide multiple avenues here so that folks can get their comments in, a project timeline. And then here, this is a really nice feature of Hub is that we have a community calendar here. So we're able to create events and we can post those here. Folks can follow these. And here we can see we have a public engagement forum coming up. These could be even links for virtual meetings. I know right now we're not able to, in many cases, have these public in-person meetings. So you could have a link to, your Zoom meeting or whatever platform you use. Or in this case, hypothetically, let's say we have an actual in-person meeting coming up. So as a member of the community, I can see where this meeting is going to take place. Mark that I'm going to attend this. I can see that this is the Eastway Middle School, get the event details and so forth. Okay, so we adapted, part of this is about adapting our outreach to meet the changing communication trends. So like I said, there's an expectation to be able to engage with your service provider at any time, really from any device. This community engagement site is going to make you successful in keeping the community informed of these proposed changes, new initiatives, and the upcoming events. So even with new digital outreach tools, I think there's still going to be a need for in-person events like we saw. Eventually we're going to get back to that point. And as a planner, we want to be better at having inclusive events and getting the word out about these events. So we have this event coming up at Eastway Middle School. Let's look at how we can use some planning tools to choose that location and get the word out. So we're going to come over here to Community Analyst, and this is included with the Hub Premium subscription. And this is a really powerful tool, I think, that planners can leverage. There's a number of different reporting applications and site selectors, and just a huge, rich catalog of data, we're going to use something called the smart mapping tool here. And let's just say as a planner, we know in the past that we haven't done a great job of engaging certain communities within our region. So in this case, we know we've done a poor job of engaging the Hispanic community in Charlotte. So how might we think about doing a better job of getting that community involved in our planning process? Well, using these smart map search tools, I can bring up to 5 different criteria in here, and this could be census data, economic data, and all of this is available as services here. You can see here there's an entire catalog of data you can browse. You can also bring in your own variables. Let me pull this back up. So I've pre-selected these 3 categories, and I want to look at our Hispanic population. I want to look at median household incomes. I'd like to target lower income households. And I'm also pulling in workers that use public transportation, because I really want to focus on those folks that are using the system. So using these sliders, I can use these to target particular locations. And you can see as I'm moving these sliders back and forth, it is showing me those block groups that meet the criteria I'm looking for. So here I can adjust this for lower income, the higher Hispanic population, and the higher transit utilization. So now I can see these neighborhoods here that would be good to focus in on. So as a planner, I know in the past, whenever we would do these in-person type of engagements, we'd usually look for some type of a public venue because folks tend to know where they are, and often you can use those for free. So a lot of times we would use public schools. So let's take a look at how we might search to have an event. So we can do a business search here. I can search for any number of things in here, whether it's business, you can get as specific as looking for Walmart or Target, but in this case, I just want to look for schools. I'm going to pull this up, we're going to search, and this is now showing me all of the schools. So let's kind of focus in on this area here. Give our internet a second to catch up. And as I click on this, here's Eastway Middle School. So this is how we decided to use Eastway Middle School. This is a really central location within this area of interest for us. So now thinking about how we could do targeted outreach, I'm going to do a walk time analysis. In this case, I'm going to assume that folks might want to walk to this venue. So I'm going to do a 30-minute walk time around this location. And right here on the fly, you can see here's what my 30-minute walk time looks like. And there's a number of things I can take a look at within this 30-minute walk time. For instance, we can pull up an infographic. So here I'm looking at an infographic of at-risk population within 30 minutes of Eastway Middle School. This is helping me determine whether or not I'm kind of reaching the target population. So in this case here, we can see we have a high Spanish-speaking population, lower income, and other factors we may want to look at. So this is kind of telling me that I'm hitting my target. We also have access to a number of different pre-configured reports. And one of these is the Tapestry segmentation profile. And what's great about this is that our demographics team in Redlands has divided the entire country up into 60 some odd different neighborhood profile types. And here we can see that the dominant profile type for this location is what we call Metro Fusion. So this gives us a really nice market rundown. And if we zoom in a little bit so we can see it better. So as we scroll down here, we get kind of an overview of what this market looks like. It's a young, diverse market. Do not speak English fluently. So this is good information to have. If I wanted to kind of do some outreach, I might think about doing this in Spanish, for example. You can see it's a diverse market. So I can see I'm hitting my target here. Some more infographics, then a market profile. So if I was going to post flyers about this particular event coming up, this is kind of telling me the types of places I might want to post that flyer so that people are seeing it. Or if I had money to do a radio ad, these are the types of radio stations I might look at. So really powerful set of information that you have available here. And this is all available within a browser. You notice I'm not opening anything on my computer other than the browser. Really nice to have this data at your fingertips. So another challenge we face is gathering feedback from the constituents. We kind of talked about how we can get information out, but we want to be able to solicit that information back. And those in-person meetings are useful. They need to happen. I think they're going to happen again soon. But of course, we want to adapt our outreach efforts to meet those changing demands. So let's take a look at how we might do that. Before I jump into kind of a new scenario here, I wanted to show you something new that Justin and I have been working on. Like Justin said, we've worked with a number of different transit agencies, and we've gathered a lot of information about community outreach. And something that really comes up a lot is folks want some flexibility in these applications. So in some cases, maybe a survey is great and that works fine, but in other cases, maybe you want a more map-centric approach. And this is an example of this. So you can see here, and I just want to show you, this is really designed to be responsive. So here I'm looking at it in a browser, but if I were to open this up on my phone, shrink this down, you can see here that it is really designed to work well on a phone. So here I can proceed as a guest, or I can use that community identity available through Hub. I'm just going to come in as a guest. And again, you can see here we get a little splash page, and this is going to really fit the form factor of whatever device that I'm using. Give this a second to load. Okay, so you can see here there's a number of different types of feedback that I could look at and give here. And what's really unique about this particular application is that comments that others have made can be made available to the public. So let's say I want to take a look at questions that have been asked. I can click on that, and here I can see somebody has asked a question about the cost or the budget of this particular project. So I can click on this, and I can see somebody asked, what is the cost of this project? And then as a member of the community, I can say, yeah, what is the cost of this project? I'm not even sure. I can like this or give this an upvote, and that's going to be logged here. So this is a nice way to kind of gauge from the community if there's an issue that is kind of recurring. Coming back out here, let's say I have a complaint or concern I'd like to log. I can click on that here. And if I want to submit a comment, I'm able to do that. So this allows me to fill out this form. And in this case, I can draw a polygon in my area of concern, but this can also be configured for things like points and lines as well. And I just fill out my form, and I can report this. Now, I mentioned that this application, you're able to see comments that have come in from the public. In many cases, or maybe in most cases, you want to be able to vet that before you make that publicly available. So here's a companion app that allows you to review, as a member of the transit agency with administrative privileges, I can review comments that have come in, and I can make the decision if I want to make this publicly available or not. So here I get a list of everything that's been submitted. I can see on the map where it is. I can read the entire survey, but then I can decide, do I want to make this publicly viewable or not? So if I say no, this will disappear from that public app. If I say yes, that's going to allow the public to see limited comments and be able to upvote that particular comment. So just kind of another way of engaging the community. Okay, so now I'm going to switch roles a little bit here and kind of take on a little bit different scenario. And for this, we're going to use my phone here. And as an employee, we're going to say I'm an employee in the city's medical center. So we're going back to Charlotte here. I work changing shifts. I often work overnight, a lot of times on weekends. And right now, the transit system does not provide me service that gets me to work when I need to, especially on those weekends and late night shifts. So I find myself relying on rideshare services to fill in that need. So on a weekday shift, I'm waiting at my bus stop to go home, and I see that there has been a QR code posted. So pull up my device here. You can see here under the system redesign proposal, this route's going to be changing. I was kind of joking with Justin. I think we all know how to use QR codes now. If you've been to a restaurant in the past year, right? This is how you get your menu. So I don't know how these work. So what's cool about this is pulling up the information for the route that I'm about to ride. So this was posted on the number 15 bus stop sign, and I'm able to get information about the proposed changes here. So this operates as a local bus route with regular weekday service, 5 to 10, limited weekend service. Okay, so what is being proposed here? So under the proposed service plan, the number 15 would not change. There would be limited changes to schedule to facilitate transfers. There's the route. Here's the proposed weekday service. I can see there's no owl service, really limited night service, very limited weekend service. So this really isn't meeting my needs. So I'm going to provide some feedback. So I'm going to take the survey. So this brings up the ridership feedback survey, and this is designed to collect feedback from all routes. You can see here at the top, it's already pre-populated this for the number 15 route. So I don't even have to select that. I can input my location. So if I want to put in my home zip code, I can do that. And then what is my impression of the plan? I'm going to say I'm not a big fan of this right now. There's really nothing that I like. What do I dislike? I'm going to say limited night service. Then how often do I use this? I'm a daily rider. Where do I go? So I go from home and work mostly. When do I ride? Late nights. And do I want to be contacted? So I'll say yes, you can contact me. And we'll provide our contact information and submit that. And that's all there is to it. So really, making this simple for the public to provide that feedback. I'm able to do this from my phone. In this case, I'm probably sitting here waiting for the bus anyways. Just took me a minute and was really easy to get that really valuable feedback from the public. Okay, so let's leave.
You can make these surveys as simple or as in-depth and complicated and involved as you want. Which will show throughout, and as Jay is showing, everything is highly configurable, right? So even out of the box, there's no coding required. It's very configurable, and you just decide the elements that you need in it, and you can push those out pretty quickly.
Absolutely. So by utilizing this location-based strategy, this is how we're adapting to those communication trends. You can see there, I scanned a QR code. I saw what the proposed changes were really easily on my phone, and I gave that feedback. So we're going to utilize those resources to serve our community in the best way possible. So now let's kind of switch gears and let's look at the ways that we can measure our engagement. So for this, I'm going to show a few different things. We're going to go back to our Hub page, and as a Hub administrator, you have this really nice dashboard that just shows you how often people are visiting your Hub site. And this is a live site, so these numbers are relatively small, but here we can see the number of views we've had, the number of sessions, and about how long folks are staying on the site. And I can filter this by the time of by the date as well. So if I want to look at the most recent metrics, I can do that as well. So this is just a nice way to see, hey, are people even coming to our Hub site? And if not, can we promote it better? Can we can we provide links from our existing web page? How can we drive some traffic here? Another thing we can use though is our dashboard, which we started off with here, and I'm going to go ahead and just refresh this. So this is a really great way of taking all of that survey information, and this is just providing us a really nice overview of the data that's coming in. So here I can, again, we're seeing this data come in by zip code, for example, but I can also look at this by routes. I can see here that number 15 route that we commented on. If I click on that, 768 of the responses are dealing with that. So I'm getting an impression here that, okay, there's a lot of feedback on this particular route. The sentiment here, about 10% plus 10%, so about 20% of the feedback has been essentially not great. So maybe this is something we want to investigate a little more closely. If I want to look at, the most recent feedback, if I click here the last 24 hours, here's that survey that we just now submitted. So I can see here that, Jay said there's that limited late night service. And if we were to kind of go through and sort through some of these for this number 15 route, we would see that actually a lot of the feedback deals with the lack of late night service. So we can make changes to, just kind of looking here, a lot of this is dealing with the lack of late night service. So using that feedback, let's use that to make changes. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? We're trying to build community consensus and build a transit system that works for everyone. So let's make changes to that number 15 route. So this is the Hub page for that number 15, and I just really want to drive home the point here that this is all configurable. You don't need to be any type of a web expert to build these pages. I can come in here and type, make changes. All I have to do is drag and drop if I want things like a new picture in here. And then I just point it to where, I can upload a picture or point it to a URL of a picture. Very, very simple to configure this. So based on that feedback we got, we can update this page and have something that looks like this. So this is our number 15 route, and we've updated this starting January 1st. We're going to be upgraded to the high frequency bus network. So we've upgraded this to much better service. Thanks to your valuable feedback, we adapted our plan to include frequent all-day service. You can see here, this is pulling metrics from that hub. So a lot of our feedback is coming for this particular route. We can see here the weekday service, 20-minute out night service, 30-minute owl service, really good weekend service. So we adapted our plan based on that feedback. Now, one thing I might want to do now is, since I've made this change, I might want to communicate that back to the folks in the public, because they might be interested in hearing this. So there's a number of avenues I could do that. I could come back here, and if I were to select, these are out of order now, but I could pick the one that was just submitted and submit an email to that particular writer. But a better thing to do would be to leverage Hub. So we come back here to our Hub page. I can go to my community, and everyone who signed up for updates is listed here. And what I can do is I can send a message to everybody. In this case, I don't want to spam all of my coworkers. These are coworkers that we have added in here just so we have some folks available on our demo site, but I don't mind spamming myself. So I'm going to put a message here. I can provide a link to this. So here's our new number 15 route. I'll just drop this link in here. We'll say new number 15 service and send that message. So you could push these messages out to everyone who decides to follow your Hub site, which really makes that public engagement cycle much easier. So with that, that finishes up my demonstration. One thing I do want to point out here is that on our ArcGIS Solutions site, you do have access to pre-configured solutions that you can deploy with a push of the button, in particular for public transit. So we have things for, last month we did a session on safety and SMS for transit, but we also have things for community outreach in there as well, and a number of other community applications that you can leverage there. So I'm going to turn it back over to Justin and Terry to wrap up.
Yeah, awesome job, Jay. One thing I was going to say too, like Jay had mentioned, the safety management system webinar we did last month. We used ArcGIS Hub there as well in terms of pushing out and kind of creating this really an environment of safety within your agency. So maybe you use it as an internal site to promote safety across your organization. So that's a way to use Hub as well.
Okay, we're going to open it up for questions. So if you would like to go ahead and type your questions into the question box, and we'll get to those questions. Great job, Jay, by the way. So if I was interested in what would actually be the best way to get started with this community engagement with the Hub site and so forth, what would you recommend, Justin and Jay?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. So one way, you could connect with us and we could help you kind of lay out some of your requirements and how you would want to, really set it up. If you have ArcGIS, then you already have access to ArcGIS Hub. So you have kind of all the components that you need for that already. Now, if you wanted to add in, the community identities, where they would sign up to follow initiatives and events and things like that and be able to push updates to those folks that signed up for those things, then you would need ArcGIS Hub Premium, which is an additional cost to that. But yeah, if you wanted to just start using ArcGIS Hub as a site to start, kind of doing some community engagement, you would have access to that now if you already have ArcGIS.
Okay, and let's see, Jay, this is, so is Community Analyst integrated into Hub Premium?
So they're not integrated. They're kind of separate applications, if you will. But the point I wanted to make there was that if you have that Hub Premium subscription, which Justin was just talking about, we include licenses to Community Analyst Online. You could also get access to Community Analyst Online separately from Hub if you want to utilize that. And I don't know if Justin has pricing, but it is very affordable and just a very powerful tool. I mean, I highly recommend taking a look at it.
Okay, and you did sort of, Jay, you mentioned the solutions page.
Yep.
How much of what you were showing today is actually there on the solutions page for downloading?
So the crowdsource manager and the crowdsource reporter application, so that was the map-centric way of engaging the public. Those are available as configurable solutions on there that you can deploy. There's a transit outreach solution on there, which we actually didn't show today, but it's kind of similar to the crowdsource reporter application. And then whenever you use that leverage of the Hub Premium, you do have access to, there's some pre-configured Hub sites on there, and one of those is for community engagement. That's kind of how it started off. It kind of skins the site for you, so you don't have to start from scratch. There's a lot of different images and graphics in there, and some cues for the text you might want to put in there. So that's a great way to start with Hub.
Okay, and there's a question related to the community feedback dashboard. Can you talk about how easy that was to configure and how someone could set that up?
Sure. So we were leveraging ArcGIS Dashboard there. So that's part of your ArcGIS ecosystem, whether you're using ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. It's a configurable dashboard, so it's able to connect to any ArcGIS web data source. So whenever you configure something like a survey or really any web map for that community feedback, all that information is going to come back into ArcGIS Online as a what we call a feature service or feature layer, and Dashboard's able to read that. So as far as configuring the dashboard, you really just decide which one of those attributes you want to view. It's a drag and drop experience with Dashboard, so you want you want to gauge, you want a bar chart, you want a list, you pick what you want to see, and then you just configure it for the data source and how you want it to look. It's actually pretty fun and pretty straightforward to set up.
Okay, and there's a question, let's see, relating to integration with CAD AVL. So let's say that an agency had a CAD AVL and the vendor uses ArcGIS as its mapping tool. Would you be able to pull those coordinates so that and integrate them with these tools so that you'd actually know which route the person was making a comment about?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways of kind of working with CAD AVL information, and we have a few different examples of that that we've set up, but typically that involves pulling in your real-time data, and if you either want to view that real-time or if you want to kind of look at historical, we're able to log that, but that's probably going to involve using ArcGIS Velocity or Geo Event Server, and then we're able to pull in things like GTFS real-time and other AVL sources.
Okay, and there's a question about whether these tools are available for the visually impaired.
Yes, so Hub is designed to be compliant, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name of the certification there, but yes, these tools are designed for the visually impaired, and if you want some follow-up on that, feel free to email and we can provide those resources.
So, okay. And I guess there's a question relating to if the city already has a hub site, the relationship between the transit agency's hub site and the city's hub site. Could you sort of address that concept and how they could actually interact?
Yeah, so I think in the demo we kind of talked about using Hub as the collaboration platform to be used with the public, but yes, it can be used as a collaboration platform between organizations. So, if this is using Hub, or if you have community organizations, you can provide them access to Hub. But yes, it can be a collaboration platform for sharing data back and forth.
Okay. And let's see. So and are there sort of language translation tools built into the hub?
I believe we integrate with Google Translate with Hub.
Okay, all right. And yeah, that's let's see. Yeah, I guess it's sort of is there an easy way to switch between languages for these types of applications?
Yeah,
I guess
Google Translate. Yep.
Yeah, right. So another question, can you talk a little bit more about the communication mechanisms back to the public? What are the best tools to leverage in Hub to send newsletters or other information, or to post notices as well? Can you maybe speak a little bit about that?
I mean, so as we saw, there's really just a number of ways you can communicate with the public, and it kind of gets down to your specific needs. I don't know if I have an answer for the best way to do it, but as you could see, there was ways to push emails out to folks that were following that particular initiative. You could use the event page to set up events, and folks would be notified if a new event is coming up. Again, because this
calendar.
the events calendar. And then also this site can be kind of configured to mimic and look like part of your existing website. So the transit agency, you probably already have a website. You can make Hub almost be part of that website, so that as they're navigating and interacting with your website, they're able to just kind of get into the Hub there as well.
Okay, great. And so I think that wraps up the questions that we have for today. So if you want to reach out to Justin or to Jason, I've listed their email addresses there. There is a short survey that right after the end of the webinar, if you would please fill out that survey and let us know what you thought of the webinar. And we do hope that we want to thank you for attending today, and we hope you'll join us for future webinars. So with that, thanks everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in future.
Yep, we'll
Thank
talk
you,
soon. Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Take care.